Hi, everyone. We're back for the long part of the long day. We're doing a quick session on Metahuman, not a master's class on Metahuman. There's people who probably know it way better than we do, but we are going to, fail together. I'm going to walk through it a little bit to do some of the starting things. As you can see, probably from the gallery, a bunch of folks have already started to play with this a little bit. And one of the reasons that we're interested in this, and we're going to basically this week, we're going to talk just about Metahuman and how to play with it and how to approach it, hopefully introduce you to some of those things. As we go forward, next week, we're going to talk about getting a character out of Metahuman and into Unreal and how to and then we'll start, and that'll be it. We'll just be excited that we're there. And so we're going to take this very slowly week by week, so that we can fit it into an hour. We can answer lots of questions or trade notes amongst ourselves. And Nick will be back next week to talk about that. But I think that we're going very slowly so that we can just kind of figure it all out together as kind of a bit of a lab and talk about what works and doesn't work related to this. I will say that a lot of people think of, well, I'm not doing a game. I don't know why I would need Metahuman. I think that there's so many places to use Metahuman for if we're doing pre-visualization, if we're trying to show things. And so my goal is to get a whole bunch of people, 100 or 200 people able to build Metahumans and just pose them in Unreal. That's it. Pose them, take stills and so on and so forth, because just with that basic skill set, it'll revolutionize the way you do storyboarding, the way you do. I mean, if you imagine having these tools and being able to create storyboards, if you're not an artist that can draw those things, you can very quickly throw together some very good looking storyboards that will be, and we've done a lot of 3D visualization for artists, for our clients, and that has led to work, physical work, because they can truly see it. They can get an idea of what it looks like. On top of that, there's a lot of opportunities for games and other things that we think could be cool over time, but we're not worried about that just yet. So anyway, so let's we're going to jump into it a little bit. I'm going to show you a little bit about and Tony, I think you're locked on yourself there, maybe. I'm not sure as I'm talking there. So people are probably
Alex,
wondering.
questions in Mukana are locked right now. I'm hearing.
Oh, sorry, that's me. Hold on. The last one was running really long. There we go. So now if you have questions, go ahead and ask those questions in Mukana. First question that comes in is from Stan Chan in Roseville. He said, what are the best practices and good approaches for getting Metahuman to match your face? So one of the things that we've done, I've had to match a couple people specifically with this, and number one is know that you won't hit it right on. So it will be you can see folks who have spent some time. I think that Ken is probably the closest of the bunch of us that as far as getting someone to look like him. I think John is probably second most. And one of the things that is difficult is that you just don't have the tools to hit it right on. Now, one of the things that you can do is a variety of software. I don't have it on this program. I found it and now I can't, it's not on this computer because I didn't do my Metahuman stuff on this computer, but you want to look for a piece of software that will either you have preview opened or you have something that'll do a semi-transparent overlay over top of Metahuman. And there's a couple apps that do it, and I just can't remember which one I was using, so that you can literally you get your face in Metahuman right underneath it, and then you can start kind of pulling towards it. But you'll find that there are tools that you can't quite get to, that you can't quite get to it. And we have to remember this is a pre-release of this process. I also think that I believe that they're purposefully not giving us some of the tools that we need, because reproducing other people at this level of detail is uncomfortable for some. So we want, I think that is, part of the challenge there. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull this over. We're going to go into full screen mode, and I'm going to cut to it. So this is what the Metahuman interface looks like when you open it. So you can create a Metahuman. You can obviously save your Metahumans. That you basically find one that you're going to start with, and it is the one thing I will say is as you build these out, if you're going to use these as extras or digital doubles, you almost don't need to do anything. Like you could literally, if you're not trying to match something or look like something, you can grab these folks and literally export, bring them in, export them out, But what I will say also is that you can't really get to some of these looks without putting them in. So where you start is important. You want to look for the structure of their face, how they're, where, how close they are to whatever you're trying to produce. But you will be able to move some of it around, but you won't be able to completely reproduce it. So we'll start with this right here. This is Mike's, excuse me, not COVID. And so here we have, a basic preview of them. And now this is pre-built animation that's just being applied to them so that you can get a sense of what they look like in different angles. Now I'm going to stop that for a second and you'll see it kind of snap forward. I'm going to blend. So the blend allows you to have basically morph targets. So these blends, now I add a lot of them because I want to know, it does matter where you put them because they are going to be a certain, they do have a certain pool. One thing that I've learned not to do is limit myself to men for, if I'm trying to make a man, I don't necessarily limit it to all men that I put in. So I might put a woman in here. And then I might put, I start looking at, and one of the things I'm looking for is diversity of the different types of faces that I might want to go towards, as opposed to necessarily looking like the person that I want. If I add all of my blend shapes to be very close to the person that I want, I have very few places to pull, to make that work. So now it'll add some, and I have 3 here, and I'll usually add a couple more. The skin color doesn't really matter because it's not, it doesn't really affect skin color as you blend. It's more of a geometry process. And so, I will continue to add, people to it. This is new, that you used to not be able to continually add people to it. So this is new since the last time I really built something out. So we'll put something in here. There we go. So that's about, I guess it's right, 6. So now, what you have here is these are all the blend shapes that I might want to be able to go towards. And the order sometimes does matter. If you change the order or delete them, it basically is placing for any, you'll see these little highlighted areas here. So when we place this, you see this here, this circle is very much this, right? And so as you click on this and pull one way or the other, you're basically saying, I want this feature to be more like this or more like this or more like this as I go through it. So if I grab onto it here, I'm going to grab on and I can start to move, and you'll see how the eyebrows are changing. You can see that little bit of that highlight there, and it's going towards. And again, this is really useful. You think you can't really use, I thought that I could only use, I would only use sculpt or move or whatever, but it's impossible to get to some of the features, the facial features, without being able to start to, blend those together. So we'll do something like that. We might grab the nose, and you'll see the nose, kind of become more. And again, what you're going to see is that it jumps a lot because I'm not having a bunch of people that look the same. I actually had people that were looking different, and that was kind of, and this is a good example of, let's see. And this isn't the only tool you have now, but the jaw is a good example, for instance. And by the way, if you're using a Mac, a 3-button mouse makes a big difference because my right click is a rotate and it's really hard to use the Mac. I use this without a 3-button mouse. Now this one, like you'll see this big guy here, Hudson, I use a lot because if I want to have a bigger jaw, it's very hard to get that jaw to come out like that, in my opinion, without Hudson in the mix. So if you want to kind of square that jaw off there, that tends to be something that's, important. So we can kind of take a look at what we've done here. So, all of these things are, you can kind of really get to a place that you want for any one of these things. And so you can see how we're really kind of taking advantage of that process. We can go down here and we'll go towards. So you can see how I really brought in Hudson's big jaw there. if I want to, or something in between. I don't have to go all the way to anything. I can go, okay, well, I just want a little more jaw. So I use those. I think of them more as handles than I think of them as, you know, to kind of go, or more that I'm trying to target towards. So that's, you know, one thing to think about there. Let's see if we do, you can see how we kind of play with. And again, some of these things are easier to do here than other parts of the app. So you get more movement oftentimes. Now, from there, you might go to the move. The move is going to give you some, you know, some more granular control, but it's still grabbing a lot of points that you may want to use, you know, there. You can see this kind of rolling up or down. And it very much changes how their natural, you know, you can see how, but it's grabbing onto a couple different ways of kind of managing how those things interact. You can see here. There's a lot of control as you kind of move those around. And you can see how we're really changing that whole look pretty dramatically as we start to grab onto this. Pull it out like. So we can see that we've kind of started with something that's almost completely different than anything that we had before. So we might get into something like this, and then these, as you move to sculpt, what you're really doing is you're now grabbing onto individual pieces. And JJ was talking about this earlier, is that the direction, you know, where you are, does make a difference. So I have a way to pull some of these from the front, but from the side, I can do more, you know, as far as that goes.
Alex, would you consider this, is this NURBS?
It's not NURBS. This is it's closer to subdivision surface, but it's an implicit modeling system. So you're not actually grabbing onto the model. You are grabbing onto weights, and those weights are pulling it forward and back with a fair bit of limitation. So and it's really using a lot of blends. So the blends are very much like a morph target. And I'm simplifying this dramatically. This is one of the most advanced sculpting tools I've seen, you know, in this area. So,
it's pretty unique, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very unique, you know. And what's really powerful about this is that when you're done with this, what would then be a week of waiting. So when we want to connect the character to animate it, we have to put all these little bones underneath it and attach it to the surface, and to do all of that well would take, you know, a week at least to get it just right. And all of this will come into Unreal next week when we do it. It'll all come into Unreal already rigged for you. And that is crazy powerful, you know, as far as what's possible. You can see here, we can kind of grab on.
So do they still call that inverse kinematics for adding the bones in?
Yeah, with those bones, well, it's the bones themselves are not. That's just weighting, you know, weighting or binding the bones or weighting the bones, or there's a lot of different ways that you can refer to it. How they're, you know, what inverse kinematics is that when a kinematics is saying if I've got an arm joint like this, a kinematics, forward kinematics means that I just say I want to rotate this up, and then I want to rotate this way, and then that would make it look like this, right? So it would be, this one would be swinging up, this one would be swinging back, but you're basically, but if you, with forward kinematics, if I move this up this way and this down this way, this arm is this hand and where it is in space is being affected by this rotation. Inverse kinematics means it goes up the chain. I grab onto this and I move the hand, and it does whatever the rotation is necessary for the arm to do that. Within inverse kinematics, pays attention to what can it physically do and make that work. So that's how. So, but doesn't affect the modeling here. But when you animate it, it's often a mixture of inverse kinematics and forward kinematics at this point. So you can see how I can grab onto specific things and pull them back. And again, some of them you have, you know, more or less access depending on, where you are in the, what you're rotated in. I have a tendency to pull in pretty close, to grab on to specific things. You do want to see it, kind of up close. So this is the basic sculpting. And what I will say is that this is, this is free. And the best thing to do is to play with it, because it's just a really, fun thing to do. Now, once we get through just this basic stuff, we have skin. So the skin here, now, one of the things that's interesting is the roughness is not an increase or decrease. It's going through different samples. Let's see here. It's texture. Hold on. Yeah, textured seems to just jump through different sets. It's not really making it more textured or less textured. It's basically, I think, the easiest way they could have you select different looks and different sets. So you're basically moving that texture around, and it's gonna, give it different, kind of a different, so it can get old. But you'll see that one before new is not as old, and really is pretty amazing, as to, the level of detail that you can get into.
Just a quick question, Alex. How is yourself and Ken putting your own video behind to sculpt over your own face?
Well, I would use stills. Your own video is really hard. I do use my own video when I'm animating the facial animation, because I'll do things into the camera and try to figure out what is my face actually doing to do that. But
is there a way to import a camera into the software? No, it's something you have to overlay yourself.
No, but with the software, yeah, you have to do it. There's no way to overlay or underlay it. So
Okay.
I end up using either an overlay software that lets you kind of go half, or I just have something right next to it. I just frame it so that I have the image next to it, and I'm looking really closely at that. But yeah, you have to kind of build up your own reference. Other questions that are coming in from Douglas Carmichael: how do you animate Metahuman to match mouth movements of words? So we are going to talk about that later, but we are going to use facial tracking to do that, and we're getting you all access to that software. So you'll be able to play with it inside of not in Metahuman, but actually in Unreal. So the first step is we're going to build the characters, and then the next step is next week we'll get them into Unreal, and then after that we're going to talk about facial capture but we're going to use facial capture to do most of that work. You can also do it by hand, and there's a series of rigs, but Metahuman's not the place to do that animation. Juan C. Robles from Mexico says, while researching for images to test Metahuman, I found this site, humanphenotypes.net. I think it could be useful. Yeah. It looks interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting thing to have there. So I'm going to definitely mark it. Go ahead, Tony.
Alex, for the purposes of this conversation and what you're doing right now, there's a lot of different activities going on. So I was just curious, do you want me to keep it on panel or just keep it on you?
Oh, just bounce around things that look interesting. Just be creative. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. If I'm talking about something, then bring it back to me. But if I'm just kind of talking, I wouldn't worry about it. So hold on. I realized I didn't pull myself out of that. Let's jump into a couple more questions here. Stan Chan said, what are the best tools or approach to getting the best perspectives for translating facial features into Metahuman? A 3D face scan. A 3D face scan, I really wish that Metahuman had an underlay system, but it doesn't. Yeah, a 3D mesh would be great. And the one that you can use is, there's a 3D scanning tool that I think I have on the best one for getting a 3D scan of your face is Bellis 3D. At least, I don't know what it does on the Android, but on iPhone, there's a thing called Bellis 3D, and you can literally just turn your head up and down, and it'll just give you a 3D model of your face. And that can give you, I think that sometimes you get less distracted because you can just look at the model itself. On a Mac, it'll open up directly inside a preview. On a 3D model will just open up and you can look at it there. So, so that's another, that's another way to, to make that work. But the best thing to do is you straight on, you need a straight on, and you need straight to the side. And then you want kind of halfway views, 45-degree views. And then you want to also go up and then down. And that's going to give you the basic views that you need. So it's really about 6 views of your face are going to give you something that you can kind of refer to. Another question coming in from Douglas Carmichael said, can you use Metahuman to create realistic babies for medical parenting training content? No kids. It doesn't do any kids right now. It's all adult. And so, yeah, there's no way to do that yet. And Aaron Huselage says, is there a tool to allow us to create asymmetries? Real humans aren't always symmetrical. And I think that there is. Hold on, let me look at this.
Yeah, there is, Alex. There's
well, in the sculpt. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Where is it?
No, there is. Yeah, there's the way you turn on.
Oh, it's right down here.
Asymmetry.
So
yeah.
you can see it right down here at the right here. There is I'm in symmetry mode, but if I turn off symmetry mode, there we go. Now, when I grab onto, let's see here.
Aha.
There we go. Permanently.
Now he looks like he has a brain tumor on his left
got,
side.
He's got Bell's palsy.
Yeah, so.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, yeah, without the symmetry mode, I guess the nose, it gives you. There you go.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, like, can I crook somebody's nose?
Sure. Yeah, with symmetry on, it's going to duplicate whatever you do on the left side to the right, or the right side to the left, depending on which mode you select.
Sure.
Right down the center, it doesn't seem to give you a lot of control. But
so I can't, like, make it look like they have a broken nose or had a broken nose.
I don't see a way to do that here.
I mean, I guess in Unreal you can, because you could just change the model, but
yeah, you can.
It'd be more difficult, I think.
So yeah, so you can do that. I'm gonna turn it back on for now. Oh,
thank you.
Oh, and I guess, but if you want to turn it back on, it looks like it wants to. It wants you to. You can't turn it off and then turn it back on.
Yeah.
So you got to decide which way you want. So I'd probably do symmetry at the end. With all of these things, the eyes, you have a lot of, control, and these controls are kind of amazing. You get into the iris, it's like, what shape of iris do you, like, how do you want that shape to be? So they've done just an enormous amount of work on, and you can do a lot of times I'm turning things up. One of the things that I tend to do is I tend to make the eyes bigger than they would naturally be, because it makes more sense for people. Like it looks a little bit more cartoony. You're trying to get over the kind of the uncanny valley. And so I've found so far that I prefer to have the eyes just a slightly over accentuated as far as size goes. So yeah, we'll do that. We'll make the.
And a quick definition for those who don't know what the uncanny valley is.
Uncanny valley is the so there's a point where when it's really cartoony, we will be okay with a lot of things not working. Your face isn't moving as like it should. There's a whole bunch of things that you may be okay with. As you get closer and closer and closer to a real human being, your eyes now want it to be a real human being. So if you look at the complaints people had about Princess Leia, for instance, in Rogue One, that's incredible animation. But and if it was applied to a cartoon character, we would think it was great. But because it was so close to Princess Leia or to a human, our mind immediately went to something different. So that's the challenge there. Douglas Carmichael asks, with enough processing power, could you easily see metahuman technology used to create synthetic presets for live content? Yes, I think that is. And again, remember, these characters can be brought into Unreal and already be synthetic characters that can be animated live. And so there's enough process with the right graphics cards. So a lot of that can be done already. So, and then Ash Yadav says, I am not able to change the camera view on the Mac OS. I can only get the front facing. What am I missing? A 3-button mouse. 3-button mouse is what you need there. So it's really hard. I don't know what the keystroke is to do that. There might, on the heads up, it may allow you to do that. Orbit.
Press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can move the camera.
You can move it
to presets, and then if you hold down Control and drag with your mouse, is it Control? No, Alt.
Alt.
Yeah.
Alt
and
then
drag.
It doesn't work on the Mac. That doesn't work.
You can also. Can you change the focal location with right click?
I guess that, yeah, Option. You're right. Option or Alt on the Mac. You can do it. But I will say that it is infinitely easier. The 3-button mouse. It's worth, if you're going to do any metahuman stuff, it's worth spending whatever a couple $15 to get a 3-button mouse, because it's really worth it. Teeth are pretty interesting as far as that goes. You can play around with a lot of variation. A little bit of variation is kind of nice. Too much makes them look like there's something very wrong with them. Get really placky.
Which, I mean, you may want, depending on your person you're trying to make.
Yeah. And you can see how you really have a lot of control. This is new, actually. Control over incisors here. You can see that I have, so what's incredible, I mean, I just got to tell you, as someone who has been doing this for a long time, it's kind of amazing that you can do all of this. We can go a little Johnny Depp here. That's, I don't know what that is. Anyway, so there's some makeup options here that are possible, and there we go. See, so all of those things are doable there. Here with the head, you have a lot of hair options. I wish there were more. Of course, I found that I didn't ever have exactly what I wanted, but let's see here. There you go. That's a lot of hair there. So, and this is a place where it's a little bit limited as far as, the options that you have as far as making all this work. Of course, you can add some salt and pepper to the hair, and it's actually done pretty well. Eyebrows, you have a bunch of choices, not a ton of choices, but you have a little bit. So you can kind of play with what these eyebrows look like. And then, and hopefully for some of you watching, beyond the, it's just a lot of fun to play with. I will say it's free. You don't need a very powerful computer because it's doing all the work for you. And so it's just something that you can have, generally a good time with.
Sky's Metahuman looks absolutely perfect, Sky.
Been working really hard.
Yeah.
Actually, working with my friend John Nearest on the back end. He's texting back and forth with me, my friend that was here this week. He's been working in this for since it began as well. So I was going to invite him in, but I think it was kind of too late. But he will be around, my friend John.
That's great.
And yes, thank you, John, for noticing. I've been working really hard at the jowls, particularly.
Okay, has anyone played with this clay material yet? This is something I just came across at the top.
Yeah, it's kind of nice when you're just trying to figure out the shapes themselves. Switching to clay to get rid of all the gack of hair and everything.
Nice.
But as you can see, we started with something very basic, and now we're in something that's completely different than what it was before. So you really have a lot of options as far as how how you put this all together. Another question that we had from Aaron Huslage said, "Are we looking at the first step towards developing Unreal Engine in the browser?" Maybe. This isn't really developing anything in the browser. This is a screen stream of an AWS server that's doing all this for us. So we're not, this isn't a browser level thing. So, and what's great about that is that it doesn't really require our home computer to have very much power, to make this all work.
So Alex, before Metahuman, how hard would this have been in the old methodologies?
What I just created here would take weeks.
Yeah.
Weeks. I mean, nothing less than weeks. And every change that you'd make would be weeks more. Like it's night and day. Like it's unbelievable. And regardless of all the complaints I have about Epic and other areas, this is the most stunning software I've seen in a long, long time, as far as what it does and how long it takes. Juan Rubles in Mexico says, after using after using the move or sculpt tool is the blend locked? It isn't. Because these things interact. So the blend, the move, and the sculpt all interact. They're kind of weights against this. And so, so you wait, so you can definitely keep on going back and forth. I will admit that I do find that blend, move, and sculpt in that direction is the best way to go from my experience. But it is but you can keep on going back and forth. So if I jump back to blend, so now I'm here and we'll go to the blend. I can still, on top of what I've done, still continue to kind of pull things around. And that's additive to what's already been done with the process there. Another question from Doug. Oh, go ahead.
Can I lose weight? I'm trying to modify the body. I'm not finding the nerves. On my waist.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I wish I could use some. Douglas Carmichael said, "It looks like Metahuman technology could be game-changing for medical training and communications. Has there been talk about adding internal anatomy tool?" I think that they're talking about lots of things. I don't know if they're, when they're going to actually, do them. There's a lot to be done there. So, let's see here. I lost my Zoom. I can hear all of you. I just can't see you. There you go. So, that gives you kind of an overview of how these different things work. One of the next step will be to export this out, and you need to have an account with Unreal for Unreal Engine. So if you're in Metahuman, you've set up that account. You need to be logged into Unreal Engine in the same account, because you're going to send this to yourself essentially to make it available. So just know that that's your next step, as we move forward. The goal here today was just to kind of walk through it, talk about some of those bits and pieces. Introduce you, show you how easy and fun it is to play with Metahuman, and then have us trade notes about what we've learned. Any other last minute notes for everyone before we give everybody a little bit of a break?
I think this is super exciting, and
yeah.
I mean, I did this in 15 minutes last night, and I've just been playing around with it.
It's mesmerizing.
Yeah,
it's mesmerizing.
The fact that you can do this now instantly is just phenomenal.
Well, and again, you can throw, I want a couple characters that look this way and that way and everything else. Being able to do that really, really fast, and even create ones that will give us nightmares like JJ. But the idea is that
not the Metahuman, just JJ. JJ will give you nightmares.
No, it's JJ's character. He moved the eye a lot.
He's like a Neanderthal or something.
Well, look at the eyes are like not lined up. So So that so bothers me. Anyway, so anyway, but the interesting thing here again is don't think about it as, oh, I want to do games or I want to do cinematics or whatever. Think about it for any pre-visualization. I mean, there were so many times when I want to show a client something of there's going to be a person sitting here and that's all I need is someone sitting, and I can't find them, or I need 80 people like lined up out there to be part of a, to show that there's a crowd. I mean, one of the things that Nick and I are talking about is finding a bunch of animations or building them where we just have people sitting in a chair, like motion capture, people sitting in the chair. And then we just have a bunch of people or looking down at their phone or whatever, so that we can just literally throw all those animations onto a whole bunch of people, throw them into a crowd. So you just have a very natural looking system for all of that. And that's what's coming. Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question, and maybe it's a basic question, but I noticed that JJ and Aaron were demonstrating the metahumans, but they were also having the small picture of themselves on screen at the same time. Is that ATEM?
Yeah, it's ATEM.
OBS.
Oh, I'm on OBS.
So OBS or ATEM. So yeah, you could use that software to basically crossfade between your video input.
That's what Ken was doing too.
Yeah.
He was fading between.
Yeah, it's great. There you go. So anyway, that's the quick introduction for today. My recommendation is to play with it a bunch and have a couple characters that you want to get into Unreal for next week. So just get 2 or 3 characters. We are going to go back and do a challenge once we've gone through all these steps, where we give you pictures of a person, have everyone do the best they can to actually try to hit the mark and trade notes, because that's a lot harder and it'll bring out new learnings. But this is just an introduction, hopefully a little inspiration to play with it. It's a lot of fun. Go ahead, Leland.
Just what I'm seeing in Metahuman, I'm not seeing anything for like accessorizing hats,
there's
eyeglasses, things like that. Is that in Unreal, or are there other softwares?
You can add that in Unreal. Adding shirts or hats and everything else is painful right now. That hasn't been solved yet. So the basic shirts and shoes and stuff that come with Unreal. Otherwise, you have to go back to Maya or Cinema 4D or something, model it, import it, simulate it, import it, bring it in, those types of things. It's a thing. Go ahead, Aaron.
Don't forget this is version 0.4. So things will be happening, I'm sure.
And I can tell you from personal experience, don't build a production around it yet. I've tried that. It's painful. It was a little hell for me for a couple months. And so this is something to play with and to experiment with, not to use in production. Go ahead, Sky.
Yes, I logged in at the top of the hour, and within 5 minutes I was available. It was available to me. I did have a Unreal account previously,
right?
But it was not a day or even an hour. It was minutes.
Right. Yeah. So pretty